Hey guys, Wayback Rewind here. Today I'm going to take another look at my Panasonic HC-V180 camcorder. I'm going to demonstrate every single feature for you, and then I'm going to take it out in the field and show you some sample footage. Coming up next, here on Wayback Rewind. I'm here with my HC-V180 Full HD camcorder by Panasonic. I bought this camera brand new 7 years ago. It's still sold brand new by Panasonic today. I've kind of fallen in love with it again, and a viewer asked me to go into more details and describe its features, so I'm going to do something I've never done before and demonstrate every single feature that this camera has in this video coming up, and then show you some sample footage. So I'm going to attempt to run through every one of its features and demonstrate it as best I can in a short amount of time. So let's get started. First thing, it's got a built-in lens cap, manually operated. It charges by USB through this port. On this side you have the zoom, photo. Here you have a USB and an HDMI. On-off switch. It can also operate on-off by opening and closing the screen. There's no viewfinder. It has an AV out, but there's no headphone. There's also no microphone. This is how you go between play and record, and this is the level feature on-off, as I said before. The battery comes off here, SD card in the bottom. I'm using the extended battery. This one is rated for about 5 hours at full charge. The one that comes with it is about maybe 2 hours. About 2 hours on the standard battery. So externally, of course, tripod mount. Externally, that's pretty much it. There is a touch screen. You go back and forth between play and record with this button right here. Play and record. It's very simple. And that is it for the buttons. So I am going to hook it to this monitor so you can get a better idea of the menus. I showed you the SD card. Step one in the manual is putting in a card. It's going to complain that there's no card. I've got just a small 32 here, but it's good enough for this to go for about 2 hours. So that's the card. Selecting a mode, it uses play and record like this. It is now in play. You're going to get a menu with thumbnails. When I go into record, I'm going to get a screen that's showing what I'm recording. I'm just using those JVCs and Sonys as a backdrop. Okay, we're on page 15 already. You press this here, you get menu, and from menu you have record setup and regular setup. So setting the time, clock set, you come in here, the clock is already set. Okay, so I'm not going to false advertise, I'm going to show you how to set the clock. But you can come in here and adjust the month, the day, the year, the time, hours, minutes, AM, PM. Oh, exit, the clock is now set. Before recording, page 18, they just tell you how to hold it, how to hold the screen. Pretty basic instructions there. How to record yourself, you flip this around. Page 20, recording motion pictures. Very simple. You see the pause, it's ready to go. When I'm ready to record, I just press this button. It's now recording. For some weird reason, when you're recording, the HDMI signal shuts off, so you can't do real-time HDMI. That's a little bit of a bummer. If you are doing a live studio, this would not be a good camera for that. There's no live HDMI out. But up here, you can see that the time that I'm recording is up here. The time left remaining is down here based on the size card. And the mode that you're in, I'll get the modes in a little bit later. Talk about that. Recording still pictures. So yes, so while it's recording, I can push that and take stills on the fly, or I can go into photo mode and use this to take dedicated pictures. It's going to make the camera clicky sound. Motion picture still playback, as I indicated earlier. I press that, it goes into playback mode. I'm going to get a menu. So picture playback mode, I press this, and I'm going to see the picture. That's a still picture that I took. That's not what the camera's seeing. That's a still picture that I took. The reason I can tell, I can zoom in here, and to get to motion picture playback mode, I hit menu, picture setup, and I have it to choose between media and video and motion pictures. So you have 3 different choices here: AVC HD, MP4 iframe, and still. I'm going to talk more about the AVC HD versus MP4 in a minute, but there's basically 2 major modes that you can shoot video in: the AVC HD and MP4/iframe. I'm going to talk more about that, but just to show you how you would go into different playback modes, I press AVC HD. If I want to see all the AVC HDs, it's going to show me all the ones I've done. I've only done one. I press that, and of course it's going to play. Speaker volume adjustment. Just make sure I don't miss anything. I said I was going to demonstrate every single feature, so when it's playing back, okay, I was going to demonstrate the volume control, but apparently when you're doing HDMI out, it's going to ignore that. So let me unplug it for a second, and now I'll show you that when I press the zoom lever during playback, it's now recording, it's now modifying. That's how you adjust the speaker volume. Okay, I'm going to try to keep my promise of showing you every single feature. So sometimes features only work in a specific mode. In this case, having it HDMI plugged in did not allow the speaker adjustment because the sound is coming out of this little miniature TV here. Okay, using the menu screen. Kind of showed you this before, but this is the playback screen. I've got video setup, edit scene, and setup. Setup is the same whether you're in playback or record. But that's how you get to the setup feature. I'm going to press that button, get back to the record setup feature. So we're going to go to setup. I showed you clock set, display is 5 second and on. I prefer on. 5 seconds means that the screen is going to go back to just clear. I like the information on all the time, so I keep it to on. I demonstrated clock set. World time is basically you can have a home time and a destination. So if you're on vacation, you don't have to readjust the clock. You can set it to the time at your destination, and then when you come back home, you don't have to mess with the clock. You can just press home. Okay, it's set for Houston. That's where I live, so Houston is fine. Okay, link to daylight savings time is on. We do have daylight savings time here, so I'm going to leave that on. Date time, I have it set to off, so it's not too distracting here, but you can set this to date time, or off. I'm going to leave it off. Date format, I have it set to American date format, which is month, day, year. If you're like somewhere else, you can do day, month, year. And if you're weird, you can have year, month, day. But I'm going to leave it a month, day, year. Zoom record display is on. That way it shows me what my zoom ratio is. External display is off. You're going to see in real time what's going to happen when I do this. If I turn this to on, I should be able to see things on this monitor over here. So let me just back out of that real quick. So now you can see I've got a couple of icons here on the screen. So I have that set to simple. I'm going to change it to detail and leave that in detail. Kind of wanted that on before, but I got to demonstrate it for you where it is. Economy battery off. That means that this will not shut off. It'll stay on forever. Economy AC. If I had this plugged in, it would shut off even though it's plugged in. I have that turned off as well, so the camera will stay on indefinitely. Alert sound, I have to on. It's set to the loudest setting. Select operation icons. There are 3 different icons that you can have in the menu. I have chosen the backlight, what is the self timer, and the flower, whatever the flower is. Is that like close up? I'll have to describe that when I talk about the modes later. Power LCD. This makes the screen a little bit brighter. I'm going to go +1, make that a little bit brighter. LCD set. So it's showing brightness 1, 0, color 0. Okay, leave that the way it is. I need to get back to the menu. HDMI resolution, leave that to auto. You have auto 1080, 1080i, 1080p, 480p. I'm going to leave it in auto. It's smarter than I am. I'll leave it in auto. Viera Link, that's a way for Panasonic cameras to talk to Panasonic TVs. I don't really have a Panasonic TV that this can work with, so I might as well just shut that off. TV aspect, 16:9. This is a 16:9 TV. Initial set, that will put this back into the initial conditions, brand new. I'm not going to demonstrate that. I'm going to say no. Auto cursor position on. Number reset, that's for the photos. If you want to set it back to 0, I'm going to say no, I don't want to do that. Format media, that's for the memory card. No, I don't want to do that. Media status, this is showing me how much of my memory card is full. I've only filled up 4.9 out of 32. That's not too bad. Lots of room on that, even on that tiny little card. Firmware version info. Version 1.01, they didn't really put a lot of thought into the firmware upgrade. That's not going to work because I don't have a card in there that can do a firmware upgrade. So that wasn't able to demonstrate that, but you kind of saw what I was doing. Demo mode, I'll leave to on. So if I don't touch a button after a while, it will go into demo mode. Software info, that's for connecting this to a PC using a USB cable. I'll demonstrate that later. Approved regulations, blah blah blah. Not really interesting, but it's there. Online manual. I'm looking at it on my phone, so I'm not going to show it here. Language, English. It's the only language I know. It'd be fun to put it in Chinese just for fun, but no. So backing out. That is every one of the setup menus. Okay. Okay, that brings us to page 37. Awesome. Awesomeness. Alright, let me leave the menu for a second. They are just talking about the zoom. Page 37 talks about the zoom. That's pretty obvious. Whitey, I call it the whitey tighty switch. You go whitey or you go tighty. Level shot. In video mode, you can see the meter there for level shot. But when I turn it on, level shot is not just a display. Level shot actually tries to stabilize the picture, so it's hard to demonstrate here, but as I'm moving this, look at how the HDMI screen is moving over there. When I turn level shot on, it doesn't move quite so much. Kind of hard to show you there, but that's level shot. Changing the recording mode. Okay, we're on page 39 now. The recording mode. When I press this button, I have several different recording modes. I have the intelligent auto mode, which is basically auto everything. Then I have the intelligent auto mode plus, which is automatic everything except I can manually adjust the brightness and the color balance. Then there's creative control. This is scene mode, that's manual, and that's loop. I'll describe each one of these briefly. So let me go to intelligent auto first. So intelligent auto is smart enough to know just by pointing at what you're shooting, it will select the best possible mode. it'll automatically try to decide if you're doing portrait or scenery or spotlight or low light or night scenery, macro or normal. And it's going to try to figure all that out by itself. Intelligent Auto Plus is the same thing, except you can manually change the brightness here. You can make it brighter or lighter. I tend to give it a couple of notches up of plus for the brightness. And you can change the color balance. You can kind of switch it between red and blue here with the color balance. And that's Intelligent Auto Plus. So this is called Creative Control. Creative Control, it only works in AVC HD mode, and I'll talk more about what that is in a minute. But with Creative Control, you have this thing called 8mm movie. You can see it's kind of putting the scratches on there, and it kind of mutes the colors a little bit. Then it has the miniature effect, which it's hard to demonstrate here, but if you were showing like a live scene outdoors, it would try to make it look like a miniature by giving it a very shallow depth of field. Then you have silent movie, which kind of gives you the film scratches in black and white. And then you have time lapse, which is basically going to record just a frame. Let's see, if I go into time lapse, I can demonstrate it. You can have it record a frame once a second, once every 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 2 minutes. So if I put it in time-lapse mode, I promise to demonstrate every feature. So it's going to complain a little bit because it can't do this in 1080 60p. So it's going to automatically switch to a mode that it can do it in. So it's basically shooting 1 frame every second. And HDMI shut off. As I said, it can't output HDMI in real time for some weird reason, but now it's recording 1 frame every second, and it's going to take like 60 seconds before I have 1 second of video, so that's going to take a minute. Okay, so now I have 1 second. That means I've recorded for a minute, and that is the time-lapse function. So, scene is very similar. Okay, I've got my monitor back. So I have sports, portrait. So instead of letting the camera decide automatically, I can set it manually for portrait, soft skin. Kind of describe to you what those are. Sports, it will make fast-moving scenes less shaky. Portrait will make people stand out against the background. Soft skin will make skin colors appear more attractive. Spotlight will give you improved quality when subject is brightly illuminated. And I have snow. Snow is improved image quality when shooting in snowy locations. I have beach. Beach will make blue in the sea or sky vibrant. Sunset. Sunset is to make red in the sunrise or sunset vibrant. Scenery. Scenery is for spatial scenery. Then I have fireworks. Fireworks is to capture the fireworks in the night sky beautifully. Night scenery. Night scenery is to capture the evening or night scenery beautifully. And low light, finally, is for dark scenes at dusk. This only works in motion picture mode. It basically is a slow speed shutter. Okay, so that is everything in scene mode demonstrated. Manual is exactly what it sounds like. Manual allows me to do manual focus. So down here I've got manual focus. I can now manually focus. White balance, I can go from automatic white balance to manual white balance. Shutter, I can go from automatic shutter at 1/60th of a second to a different shutter setting, faster. Iris is exactly what you would think. I can go from an open iris to closing the iris down, making it darker, and that is manual mode. And finally, in scene mode is loop. Loop is kind of interesting. It will record a 60-minute loop, and this is another one where it switches the modes on you. It goes into 720 30p MP4, and it basically will record 60 minutes onto the card, and it will automatically erase the oldest material and automatically record over it with new material so that you always have the last 60 minutes. Not sure why you'd use this, but if you had you set up an endless loop recording that you wanted to start recording a scene automatically, it will do that for you. So for some reason you wanted the last hour of your life recorded, this thing will do that for you. So that is loop recording. And I have shown you every single recording mode as far as scene selection goes. Now let's go into the record setup. Recording with touch function. It's hard to say, but the big hand right here is basically the image stabilizer function. I can turn that on and off. I normally leave it on, obviously. The little tiny finger is basically if I want to auto track a subject, I will touch the subject and it will automatically keep the subject focus. Option, the big hand with the square on it is I can lock that onto an object and it will continue to track that object indefinitely. So I'm going to turn those off. Okay, that's page 51. Okay, I'm going to go into record functions. These three buttons here are the fade, pre-record, and backlight. Fade is when fade is on, when I press the go button, it's going to fade in from black, now fading, fades in from black, fades back to black. Pre-record. I press pre-record, and what that does is pre-record will record 3 seconds of video before I press the start button. So as soon as I press the start button, I now have 3 seconds already in there, and therefore if there was something that was happening that I almost missed, I basically won't miss it. The downside to pre-record is you have to press it every single time you want to use it. As soon as you start recording, it's going to forget that you did pre-record. And backlight compensation, that's pretty obvious. Backlight compensation, when I press backlight compensation, it compensates for backlight. Okay, I showed you earlier how the menu can only display 3 buttons, but there are 4 other features that this camera has that you have to select from this menu in order to be able to do those functions. So right now I had it set for fade, pre-record, and backlight compensation. The 4 other features that I haven't demonstrated yet, this first one is intelligent contrast control. This one is telemacro. Intelligent contrast control will brighten parts that are in shadow and difficult to see. The little flower is telemacro. What telemacro does is it's a more impressive image can be obtained by focusing on the object only in close-up and shading off the background. Sounds kind of interesting. This one is grid lines. If you want to turn grid lines on, that's the button to turn grid lines on. And finally, this one is night mode. The little moon and the star is night mode. One of the most common questions I get all the time is, does that camera have night mode? Yes, it does. But unless you assign it to a button here on the menu, you would never know it. So let's turn off the 3 that I have and turn on 3 that I haven't shown you yet. Since I promised to demonstrate every single feature on this camera, I'm going to come back. Okay, this is intelligent contrast. Intelligent contrast is on. Kind of hard to see what it's doing, but at least I checked the box that I demonstrated it. This is telemacro. Telemacro probably is only going to work if you're outdoors far away from something, but I demonstrated it. And night mode. Kind of hard to tell if I'm in night mode or not. Turning off my lights to see if I can actually see a difference in night mode. So I shut off all the lights in this room. Night mode color basically is just slow speed shutter. You can see that I am basically shooting in virtual darkness. The only light is the light coming off that monitor. That's pretty impressive, actually. You see with night mode off, you basically can't see anything. With night mode on, it's actually pretty good. It's super slow speed shutter, but it does allow you to see in virtual darkness. The last thing is grid lines. I think I can check the box and tell you that I've shown you grid lines since I currently have grid lines turned on this camera. And that is page 60. Now we're ready to show the setup for the record menus. If I come in here and press menu, I have the record setup menu. Okay, now record menu. First thing is zoom mode. This camera has an impressive 50 times optical zoom, but it has a 90x intelligent zoom where theoretically it can go up to 90 times without losing any resolution or by using extra pixels on the sensor. So I leave it in 90. 150 and 500 is kind of a gimmick. Those ridiculous zoom ratios don't really help you much, so I leave it set to 90. OIS is optical image stabilization. I have that set to on. Record format. Okay, so we're going to pause on this one and discuss it for a little bit. I have it set to AVC HD. Now, AVC HD was something that was probably more popular in the early 2010s. Not so much anymore. It's basically Blu-ray format. If you want to record from this camera and burn it onto a Blu-ray, this is set up to make that a lot easier. Now, Blu-ray burning is kind of a lost art. I'm not even sure I have a working Blu-ray burner anymore. This camera does have those creative modes that only work with AVC HD, so it's kind of, if you want to use those features, you have to put it in AVC HD. Now, MP4 is more common, it's more useful today, but according to everything that I've read, everything that I've researched in my own experience, the quality between MP4 and AVC HD is indistinguishable. They both use the same resolution, the same frame rate, the same data bit rate, and there is virtually no difference in how it looks. Modern editing software can handle AVC HD just as easily as MP4, so I'm not really sure I have a strong preference in this particular camera. In newer cameras, I would not use AVC HD only because it doesn't go up to the higher resolutions that MP4 does, but they do have XAVS, which is kind of a more advanced 4K version, but this camera doesn't have that anyway. But if you go into AVC HD, you have different record modes. You have all of these interlaced modes, which I would never in a million years use interlaced unless I absolutely had to for some reason. But then you have the 1080 60p, which is what I'm using right now. But my other choice is to go to, instead of AVC HD, I would go to MP4/iframe. Now, from here I have different modes to choose from. MP4, it doesn't exactly say here, but I've confirmed that is 1080 60p, and it uses about a 24 to 25 megabit per second data rate, which is pretty healthy. The same exact one that the AVC HD uses. As I said, the quality it's virtually indistinguishable. There's probably some editing advantages to using MP4 since it's not a Blu-ray format, but my editor can seem to gobble up either one without any difficulty. There are lower quality. Why you would ever use that, I have no idea. iFrame is an Apple format. I'm not an Apple guy, so I don't really know much about iFrame. I tried to Google it. There's not much out there. I think iFrame might be kind of obsolete. Nowadays you would see like Apple ProRes and things like that, but iFrame, I would never in a million years use that because I'm not an Apple guy. But so the two choices that I would ever use on this camera are MP4 1080 and AVC HD 1080. And as I said, you can pretty much use those interchangeably and they're going to have the same quality. There's no real advantage in my mind to using one over the other than Blu-ray burning. Pre-record, you can turn it on here from the menu. Face framing, this camera does have a facial recognition, so it's either primary, all, or off. I'm going to set it to all, so it's going to look for any face that it sees. Hybrid OIS, that's my optical image stabilization. I want that. Fade, I have way to call this from the menu instead of the button, but I'm going to leave that off. Fade color, I have it set to fade to black. I can also fade to black or white. Guidelines, I can also call this from the menu instead of that button that I showed you. I have it set to here, so I've checked the box, showed you how to do guidelines. Level gauge is on whether you are using this stabilization feature or not. You can have that level gauge on. AGS is the anti-ground shooting, that if you have the camera pointed at the ground for too long, it will shut off. I think we all have several videos where you've shot the ground for a long time. Auto slow shutter, this is basically like giving you that ability to see almost in the dark. That's like basically auto slow shutter is like having a night mode. Backlight compensation, I've already shown you that from the button. Intelligent contrast, I've already shown you that. Tele macro, I've already shown you that. So those things that you can assign to a button, you can also call it up from the record setup menu. Night mode, I've shown you that. Digital cinema color, this is another thing that will only work in AVC HD. I'll turn it on here. But digital cinema color, it records motion pictures with more vivid colors using XV color technology. For more realistic colors, it says use an HDMI mini cable supplied and a TV that supports XV color. That's probably obsolete, but anyway, it's there. Shooting guide. What shooting guide is, if I pan this too quickly, I will get a message that says camera panning is too fast. I'll see if I can demonstrate that later. Wind cut, that's obvious. If the wind is blowing, it will cut that sound out. Mic setup, in AVC HD, you can do 5.1 audio. MP4 only has stereo, and you can switch between stereo mic and zoom mic. Mic level is set to auto. You can also set it to manual and adjust the mic level. Picture adjust is basically, I can come in here and manually adjust the sharpness, color, exposure, and white balance. Manual focus assist helps me to manually focus. I'm going to leave that on. And that concludes the record setup for motion. Okay, I demonstrated all of the record for motion menu settings. Now I'm going to go into still mode and show you the menu settings for record in still mode. Many of them are the same, some are unique. I'm only going to hit on the unique ones. We have picture size. Of course, you always want the largest one possible. 16 by 9, 10 megapixels. Self timer. You can do self timer on or off. You have off 10 seconds, 2 seconds. I'm going to leave that off. Shutter sound. I like the shutter sound, so we'll leave that on. And that's pretty much it. Picture settings in record. Okay, playback. We are now in playback mode for video. Playback mode for video is going to show you these thumbnails. This is a touchscreen. You can swipe it. Swiping it is a little bit tricky because it wants to select. If you don't want to do that, you can come over here. This is not a whole lot easier because this is really small. You can come over here and press the up down buttons on here. But it kind of tells you what it is here. It's a 60p. I press that. This is the one I recorded not too long ago. I've got my transport buttons, fast forward, rewind, stop, pause. So I can come in here and control this. This is a touch screen, so I can actually advance it by swiping left and right. I do have some control over that. That's playback operations. Creating a still, since I've got this paused here, I can press this button and it just grabbed a still from that. So I can create as many stills from that as I want. Creating stills from motion picture. That's page 69. Highlight and time frame index. Okay, from the motion picture playback, it took me a minute to figure this out. The manual doesn't explain it all that well, but you see you have 6 images here, and you can use the zoom lever to make those images smaller or larger, which is interesting. But you can get it to a single image on here, and then you go one more time and it will actually break that scene down into multiple scenes. So this is called highlight and time frame index. That was a little tricky to me, and you can set the interval from here of how often you want those images to be displayed, every 3 seconds, 6 seconds, 12 seconds, minutes, or to do a face search. That's kind of clever. You can see individual scenes within one cut, or you can see one cut, or you can see multiple cuts. So that's kind of interesting. That's called highlight and time frame index. Repeat play, I can either turn that on or off. I'm going to turn it on. Resume play, leave that on. Resume play will, if a playback of a scene was stopped halfway, playback can be resumed from where it was stopped. So various playback functions. Let me go back to the other menu and show you different playback functions. So if I press all, it gives me several choices. I can either see all the videos or I can see them on a particular date. So I prefer to see all. And all will show you how it was recorded. This was recorded in AVC HD 60p. That's one of my favorites. To go into a different mode, unfortunately it doesn't display all of them simultaneously. I have to press this button, and to go from AVC HD into MP4, and then I say enter, and then it says which type of MP4. I can say all of them, at least there. And now I've got the MP4, and it's going to show me all the ones I recorded in MP4. I've only done one, so it's that one there. If I want to go back, I tend to shoot more in AVC HD just because it gives me some added cinematic capabilities. So I'll go back to AVC HD. I want to see all of them. And all of the ones I've recorded were in 60p. So they're all 60p. Now, this does have the ability to do like a playback mode. I can press that. After it makes me wait, it's like what type of music you want to play. And it actually has some built-in music. You can come in here and hit play, and that crazy free music will play in the background. You can save that, say again, or exit. Why you'd ever do that, I don't know, but you can. You might want to do that. Let's say you didn't have a laptop and you just wanted this to play in the background. You could set up a little slideshow and have it play in the background. So let me go back to favorite scene setup just to show you how that works. Let's say I want that scene.
It's a one-shot deal. Turn it on.
That's my scene. I can hit add. That's now a favorite scene. It's going to like that one. It's now setting that as a favorite scene. So it's got the star on there. Return. So when I say play favorite scenes, that's going to play as a favorite scene. This is something I would probably never use, but I promised to demonstrate every feature, so that's the favorite scene selection, page 76 in the manual. I talked about playback time setting, I talked about titles, how to enter text, saving the text. Alright, so that concludes page 78. Manual edit cannot be used with MP4. Again, it kind of has certain features that work with certain formats for no good reason that I can think of. So if you want to use some of the built-in camera editing, you would have to use AVC HD. I'm not a big in-camera person, but it's there, so I'm going to demonstrate it and show you how it works. So from menu, you can come in and say edit scene. Edit scene gives me a lot of different things. I can come in and say manual edit. Select the record mode. So basically what I'm editing, it's going to re-record it. I want it in 1080p. They enter. So it gives me some little instructions. So I pick the scene that I want. I pick that one, and that one, and that one. Then I can pick the music that I want. How long? Let's say I want the music. I want classical, and start. When I'm done, I hit enter. Preview. Yes. So basically, it's going to play that music. The volume is controlled from here. So that's so 90s. I mean, in-camera editing with built-in free music. Not that I would ever use that, but it's there, so I demonstrated it. Baby calendar. Baby calendar is an interesting feature. You basically can put the age of your baby in here, and it will allow you to see the age of that baby every time you pull up an image that you took of the baby. The catch here is that it only goes back to January of 2000. So if your baby is over 23 years old, you can forget it. You're not going to be able to do baby calendar. Okay, I've already shown you the effects for the slideshow. You have the ability to come in and delete scenes and still pictures. You see that big trash can there? You can press that. All scenes, single, multi, no. I'm going to select no. 5, deleting part of a scene. This only works for AVC HD. I come in here.
It's now recording.
Let me pause that.
For some weird reason, when you're recording the HDMI system,
In the menu, I can come in and say edit scene. I can say section delete. There's a part that I want to take out. It's kind of giving me some help there. So from here, set up the section to delete. So I've got some scissors. I can come in here and clip it. Kind of your normal editing features. Touch the scene for the part to delete. Part between the scissors will basically be cut out. I don't think I want to demonstrate that, but you can touch enter, confirm, yes, and then touch enter, and it will complete the editing. So if I come in with edit, I can say divide. Divide is basically, I can come in, select the scene to divide. I can come in here and pick my same scene that I had a minute ago. I can put the scissors in there and hit scissors, and it's just going to cut that scene at the scissors. So from MP4 mode, I come in and hit edit. Now I have this thing called split and delete. It's very similar to what I did before, but for some reason it's called split and delete on MP4. It works exactly the same. I pick a scene and I can split it and delete it. If I want to protect scenes, I can come in here to video setup, scene protect. I come in here, select scenes to protect. Let's say I want to protect that one. It's now protected. Okay, so if I want to convert to MP4, as soon as I touch this, it's kind of hard to see, but it adds like a little double set of squares on there. So every one of these that's now a double set of squares, I hit enter, and it says how do you want it, what quality, HD, 720, VGA. If I touch yes, it'll start converting it. Watching pictures on TV, I'm already demonstrating that. I've got an HDMI cable plugged in here to the TV. That's page 90. TV aspect ratio, if I change that. So actually I cannot demonstrate the aspect ratio. The HDMI is too smart. It's not going to let me go into 4:3 mode through an HDMI. So it tells you on an HDMI TV, you basically have to adjust it on the TV. Viera Link, I cannot demonstrate Viera Link because I don't have a Viera Link, but I showed it to you on the menu. And now I'm going to demonstrate copying and playing back to a hard drive. I've had this camera for 7 years. I had no idea I could even do this until recently, but I found this feature on the WXF1. I have a whole video that talks about that, and I'll demonstrate it here. What I'll show you is I've got a portable hard drive here. I've got it in the anti-static packaging, but it's a raw hard drive hooked to this cable. Okay, now I'm going to plug this hard drive into this camera, into the USB port. It's a little bit of a tight squeeze here, but it will go in. As such, it's complaining it won't do it on battery power, so I'll have to plug it in. Okay, not a problem. Now the hard drive is connected. External drive has not been formatted for use with this unit. If I say yes, it's going to erase whatever's on this hard drive. I'm going to say yes. Format, you want to continue? Yes. Now formatting. Okay, now it's finished. The hard drive is formatted. I'm just going to move it over here so you can see that this is literally a loose hard drive that I've managed to connect to this camcorder. It's being powered by the camcorder, which is pretty amazing. Okay, now the main menu has a copy button, which wasn't there before. I come in and press copy. It boots up the hard drive, start copying from SD card to the hard drive. I say next. I go picture and video. Okay, let's do video. All scenes, select date. Let's say select scenes. So now it gives me a choice between AVC HD and MP4 iframe. Let's pick AVC HD. Do I want to say all or 1080? Doesn't really matter because I only have 1080. Let's say I want to just copy that one scene right there. I'll enter. Please wait. Okay, start. Now it's copying that one video. It's not super fast. And now it's done. So I hit exit. So now what you're seeing, a little confusing, but if you look at this, you see it says motion and it now has 3 circles, meaning I'm now actually viewing what's on the hard drive. So that scene that was on the SD card is now on this portable hard drive.
For some weird reason, when you're recording, the HDMI signal shuts off, so you can't do real-time HDMI.
So that hard drive now has video that I just copied from the computer. The reason I know that is I come back here and I have the menus that look just like before, but I have an extra button on here. So now when I come up here and press this button, it will ask me, do I want SD card or do I want hard drive? So that button was never there before. So now I have an SD card and a hard drive. And this looks very much like the old hybrid cameras that had SD card and hard drive. It's basically the same software, except my hard drive is now external. But I can switch between SD card, hard drive, and different video and picture modes. Now if I want to remove the hard drive, I press this button. It says safely remove the hard drive. I say yes. Please wait. Closing the drive. I can now disconnect the hard drive and realize that that hard drive was being powered by the camera, which is one of the reasons why it insisted on being plugged in while I did that. And so now I have that one video I transferred to the hard drive. I have a whole video that I did on the WXF1 that goes into more detail, but basically if for some reason you don't have your computer with you, you can take this camera and copy the scenes onto this hard drive. That's a 32 gig card in there. This is a 500 gig hard drive. Kind of makes sense when your hard drive is way bigger than your SD card. I could go out and shoot, fill up this hard drive, empty the card off. So that's copying to a hard drive. That takes me all the way through page 99, dubbing to a Blu-ray. So I really can't demonstrate that because, like I said, I don't have a working Blu-ray machine. Cannot demonstrate that. Connection to a PC. Not going to really demonstrate that. I think we all know how to connect to a computer. I just connect a USB here and I can drag and drop the files. That's pretty straightforward. Not going to demonstrate that. So finally, the instruction manual goes over the indications, what you're seeing on the screen. You can see this is 1080p, remaining time recording. I've got the stereo mic, wind cut, +1 on the monitor, the motion stabilization. This is how I get from video to still. That's how I bring up the menu. I'm in manual mode. I can go from manual mode to auto mode. Other than the connection to a PC and to a Blu-ray player, that's pretty much it. Just for completeness, I probably will connect this to a computer, show you what that looks like. Uses a Blu-ray format. When it's AVC HD, it uses just a DCIM format. When it's MP4, it's all pretty straightforward, things you've seen before. It's not that difficult. You can drag and drop these files into your favorite editing program. You really don't need to download and install the Panasonic software, which is still available on their website and supported for several more years. But for the most part, all I do is take the SD card out and stick it in my computer and I'm good to go. But if you just wanted to connect this camera to your computer, you could do it through the USB port and it will mount it like a drive, and it basically turns this into an SD card reader. And so there you have it. I have demonstrated virtually every feature on this camera that I could demonstrate given the constraints of what it's able to do and what I have available to do it. But for the most part, I walked you through every feature on this camera, which for an entry-level camera that originally came out in 2016, still sold today, brand new from Panasonic, but it has quite a bit of features, many of which I would never use. But for an entry-level camera that you just want to carry with you and do things and record on the fly, this is a great camera. So I'm going to attach some sample footage after this, and when that's over, please like or subscribe to my channel, and thanks for watching.